Is music really good for the soul? If so, what about the body? What about the mind? Music therapy is more than just putting on your headphones and rocking out to your favorite song. Music therapy may hold the keys to healing and harmonizing your mental health. Welcome to the Managing Mental Health podcast. Join us as we talk to leading psychologists about all areas of mental health, and we hear from real people that have overcome real mental health problems who can now share hope and encouragement for us all. Today's guest is Allison Hughey, and she is a board-certified music therapist and the founder of Carolina Music Therapy, a private practice based in Spartanburg, South Carolina. With her background in music performance, her personal experience inspired her to pursue a career in music therapy. And since earning her board certification in music therapy in 2010, she's worked in various long-term care, mental health, and community settings, and has collaborated on research studies about music and wellness. Allison, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, Jamie. Glad to be here.
Thank you for joining us. And so let's just kick it right off. What exactly is music therapy, and what would be some of the benefits from it?
In a nutshell, music therapy is the clinical evidence-based use of music-based approaches to achieve individualized clinical goals within a therapeutic relationship with a credential provider. So that might mean something completely different if we're talking about the NICU versus hospice, or mental health versus executive functioning skills. So it's very much dependent on the client and setting as far as what you might see in a music therapy session. But music therapists are trained to be able to use music as a catalyst to work toward different goals. So that might be more receptive, like with music listening, music-based relaxation, or the Bonnie method of guided imagery music, or it might be more active, like we're playing music together, we're playing drums together, or singing together. So I love that it has such a broad scope, but that can be difficult for people to understand. So I wanted to kind of give that big overview and then point out that in most cases, people feel that music is therapeutic in their lives to some degree or another. So I think everyone can relate to the power of music. So music therapists take that to another level in the clinical setting.
Okay, awesome. I hadn't thought about the wide range of uses, especially in terms of everything from NICU to hospice. I thought about it in terms of just regular therapeutic relationship. But yeah, that's in NICU, for those that don't make that automatic connection, is babies,
Yeah.
In the intensive care unit. So is it neonatal?
Yeah,
Or,
neonatal intensive care unit.
that's it.
I'll try not to use too many acronyms today.
I know. Well, no, that's okay. We have a lot of people that probably are used to some of these, maybe
Yeah.
more than I do, some of them. But yeah, that's very interesting. And hospice too, I can see that as being extremely beneficial as well. Very interesting. Very interesting. Okay. So, how did you personally get into music therapy? What led you down this path? And since you started, and this will be kind of part two of this question, since you started, what have you learned?
I initially studied music performance, flute as my primary instrument, because I absolutely love music and was told as a high schooler, oh, you're good enough to be a performance major. And I just thought, yeah, like I'm going to do it. And, kind of had an idea of what I thought my future would hold. And primarily being a stay-at-home mom and getting married right after college and, doing flute lessons on the side and that kind of thing. And then that relationship didn't work out, and that, view of what my life was going to be didn't work out, which I'm glad for where I ended up. But I patched together some part-time jobs after that and one of those was teaching preschool music sessions, and I had to use a big keyboard that I lugged in and out of sessions and on the floor with the little kids. And being in my early 20s, I had the energy for all that.
Yeah.
But one day when I was packing up, I went to or I was getting my stuff out, rather, I went to get out my keyboard from my trunk, and it snagged as I was lifting and twisting.
Uh-huh.
And being in my early 20s, I never knew that it was really important not to twist while you're lifting something heavy, and ended up with awful chronic pain for a good 6 to 9 months, and didn't have insurance at the time. And the medical professionals that I saw, tried to figure out why I was in pain, but couldn't pinpoint any specific reason. Nothing showed up on an MRI,
Mhm.
any of that. Um, but I still was in extreme pain, and got accused of being medication seeking, and
Mhm.
found myself using music to cope with that frustration and depression and physical pain. And around that same time, I luckily got connected with an amazing physical therapist, Naomi Richardson, who helped me immensely with some hands-on pain management techniques, and then also met a friend of a friend at a Halloween party who was one of the first music therapy students at Converse College. So it was
Uh,
a new program they had started. And I had never heard of music therapy before. And I just happened to meet Amy Gower at this party. And she mentioned that she was studying where I went to college at Converse.
uh-huh.
And of course, I asked her, "Oh, what's your major?" And she said, "Music therapy." I was like, "What is that?"
Uh-huh.
Like, giant light bulb moment. Like, this is a
Yeah.
thing that I could go to school for, and like focus on helping people through music. And so we had a great conversation, and I immediately started plans to go back to school and completed that program.
Okay. Well, that's awesome. That's
Thanks.
very, very ironic that the very the very thing that you that you went into as a career actually caused you to go into that career, you know, from the keyboard and twisting your back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. I
That
hadn't thought
very
of it from
that
that
very
side.
that very much fits the standard psychological viewpoint that all psychologists go into it to fix themselves. So
Yeah.
yours was just
And
in a physical sense as well.
And then in retrospect, you asked me what I've learned along the way. And one of the
Hmm.
things that I learned and recognized in myself fairly quickly in beginning the music therapy program was how much I lean on music throughout my life for mental health, and especially, childhood, teenage years.
Hmm.
I am a very highly sensitive person, and have dealt with anxiety and depression all my life. And looking back, I was able to see that I was going through that when I was even in elementary school, but I didn't know what it was. And it wasn't something that was really talked about. And so music was there for me in a
Hmm.
way that nothing else was.
Hmm.
Um, Not to say I didn't have other supports, I definitely did, but it was a safe outlet for me, and a respite. And when I began playing flute, that became such a coping skill as well, because playing
Hmm.
flute, you're extending your exhalation,
Hmm.
which helps engage your parasympathetic nervous system, and
Hmm.
can really help with anxiety. So, um, yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, the more we get to know ourselves, and the more we get to know our professions, how we see things in retrospect.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I've experienced that myself, just in the healing process from depression was the more I learned, the more I could look back and say, oh yeah, I see
Hmm.
what was going on there and how that worked. So yeah, so you mentioned a lot of good stuff. So about the actual, I guess, mechanics of music therapy in terms of how it is beneficial um, to the mind, to the body. So you mentioned breathing. That's one, and how it calms down or helps regulate the your nervous system.
Hmm.
Uh, how else does music therapy actually benefit a person that's, say, recovering from trauma or dealing with a mental illness like anxiety or depression?
So similar to other therapy providers, there are different branches of philosophy or training programs, that kind of thing, schools of thought, and how to approach
Hmm.
music therapy. So one I mentioned is NICU music therapy, which is something I haven't done training in, um, but it's a specialized training track that's very much focused on the physical responses to music,
Hmm.
and what's going on in the brain and the nervous system, and helping those babies develop more and deal with being outside in the world earlier than expected.
Hmm.
I did training in neurologic music therapy, which primarily focuses on how the brain and the nervous system respond to music, primarily for adults and
Uh-huh.
children. So with that, I tend to take a neurologic perspective and humanist perspective, but with the neurologic side, we're looking at what areas of the brain are being engaged. So
Yeah.
if I'm working with someone who needs support for executive functioning, I can use a technique in neurologic music therapy that we create music in a scaffolded way to engage the frontal lobe in consistent um, exercise and choice making and developing the
Mm.
process. If I'm working with people with dementia, which is a lot of the work that I do, I'm primarily approaching that from a humanistic perspective, with also the neuroscience informed and the disease process of dementia. We know that the areas of the brain that are responsible for engaging in music are still working
Uh-huh.
when people have dementia. So sometimes they may not speak, or they may not recognize loved ones, which is heartbreaking,
Uh-huh.
but they'll recognize familiar songs and often sing along, start dancing. I've seen people that have been slumped over and just, completely tuning everything out, like walled off to the world.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then we start the music and they sit up and they're smiling and
Mm.
singing. And often these stories come up because we know music is so closely tied to our emotional memories, our sense of self, our autobiographic memory, and those long-term memories will come up. And then you have that in a group setting in memory care, and then there's this sense of camaraderie and connection and
Uh-huh.
safety that's so important, and that they're not looking around and thinking, oh, I've got to go home, or I've got to pick up my kids. They're like, oh, I'm here with friends and we're singing and having a good time. But in that, it's not just a good time, and it's not just affirming people's life stories and personhood, which is very, very important, but
Yes.
we're also exercising their ability to communicate, because
Mm.
singing is going to exercise the same apparatus as is needed for vocal production.
Mm-hmm.
And we're getting that nervous system benefit of an extended exhalation, which is helpful for decreasing agitation.
Mm.
Um, my Most of my groups have goals of increased socialization, also increased gross motor movement, so
Uh-huh.
exercise.
Mm-hmm.
Most of us, sorry, my dog's saying hello. Most of my groups have goals of increased socialization and increased gross motor movement to music, so exercise. We know that movement is important as we get older. And as I mentioned earlier, I often see some people who are just collapsed forward and kind of walling off to the exterior world.
Uh-huh.
We put on music. Music provides that rhythmic stimulus and gets our body moving, and bypassing most of our cognitive functioning. So
Right.
the back of the brain is responding to that steady beat and automates our nervous system for movement. So often, even if a person appears to be non-responsive, they might be tapping their toe,
Right. Right.
and give a person a maraca or a rhythm instrument that they can shake and play.
Uh-huh.
And then you're adding another layer of sensory stimulation and group participation.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so, um, yeah, there's many different kind of angles or aspects of how music therapists approach what we do, depending on who we're working with.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it almost sounds like with especially you're talking about the patients with dementia, it's almost like musical CPR, like you're jump starting their brain. So that's
Yeah,
pretty
yeah,
cool. That's pretty cool.
that's a great way
How,
of saying it.
yeah, how about like a person that's, that's doing some type of trauma recovery? Is there a certain, I guess, like, not just listening to everyday music, but is there a certain type of music, a certain timing that you go through with them? Is it similar? I guess I'm trying to picture. Is it like kind of like EMDR? That they're following a physical stimuli while processing a traumatic event. Is that something similar but with music?
Not in my practice.
Okay.
I I have recently found a few music therapists out in the world that also are trained in EMDR, and I would absolutely love to integrate those two things because I think that they would mesh really, really well.
Uh-huh.
Um, I have to say that in my own therapy experience, I sought out a therapist that does brain spotting a few years ago,
Uh-huh.
and it's been and is transformational. And she utilizes or offers binaural music. And I was very,
Uh,
very skeptical when I initially heard of binaural music. And
uh-huh.
um, there's often mislabeling that happens with therapeutic music like that. It's labeled music therapy, which is frustrating.
Yeah.
But I tried it and was just really, really impressed. And it sounds like, the science behind that is pretty solid. The music is, going back and forth between your ears, and similar with the bilateral stimulation of following a light or the
Uh-huh.
buzzers in the hands with EMDR.
Uh-huh.
Um, I think that can be helpful. Um, Also, deepening one's relationship to empowering music.
Mm-hmm.
So music that reaffirms a person's dignity and sense of choice and agency.
Mm-hmm.
Listening to that kind of music, as far as music therapy with people who've experienced trauma goes. Um, for example, I've done some work with Premier Arts Collective and Julie Valentine Center in Greenville, South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
And typically with those groups, their goals of increased self-expression and increased coping skills. So some psychoeducation in that along the lines
Mm-hmm.
of how the nervous system works, and of course, the overview of how we can go into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn
Uh-huh.
as responses to trauma. I know that's something that I didn't know when I experienced trauma in high school, and just it's something I'm passionate about anytime I'm working with people who have experienced trauma or may likely experience to educate on the nervous system.
Yeah.
And it's so important to know that if you freeze, there's nothing wrong with you. And
Right.
I think a
Right.
lot of people feel shame and guilt around that and are shamed for it. And same with fawn.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I know you worked with trauma survivors and domestic abuse survivors, and
Mm-hmm.
um, sometimes we get stuck in relationships that are horrible, and I think it's in part because of that fawn response or freeze.
Yeah.
But I know that was a tangent. So often we'll use affirmations in
Uh-huh.
those groups and working on positive self-concept and using affirmations as a coping skill. Um, Finding songs that help us to de-escalate the nervous system response. So,
Uh-huh.
um, one thing that I've done with groups at Julie Valentine Center is to um, find songs that reflect that like really activated nervous system state that are familiar for a person, and then find songs that reflect a more calm and connected nervous system state on
Uh-huh.
the other end of that, and then put 1 to 3 songs in between those.
Uh-huh.
So that can be a helpful way to let yourself experience that activated state and like feel your feelings, feel your responses, and
Right.
then downshift
Oh,
or
interesting.
upshift, depending on if you're in freeze mode or
Yeah. So like
fight or
almost
flight.
like a grounding technique. If
Yeah,
they're experiencing, some elevated, you know, stress or triggers or, you know, neurological response or whatever.
yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
And physically, mentally processing what's coming up.
Right.
Um, have you seen the show Shrinking with
No,
Harrison Ford?
no, I
Um,
don't think so.
so it's really good, but one thing that he does is he's grieving and or no, it's not him. It's one of the other therapists. He gives himself like 5 or 10 minutes just to cry
Yeah.
and let out all the grief. And I think he does that with songs. Like,
Huh.
during this playlist, I'm just gonna cry and get it out.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, to be able to feel, heal, and deal. So um being able to gradually shift through music, and
Mm-hmm.
that's helping you with your nervous system, with your
Mm-hmm.
brain connectivity, because music uses so many different areas of the brain.
Mm-hmm.
Even if we're just listening to a song, that you're increasing the cross hemisphere connections, you're
Yeah.
providing that ordered stimulation and that sense of safety that comes with it, especially if it's preferred music and familiar music. You're getting a serotonin, dopamine boost from listening to preferred music. Your cortisol is going to go down,
Yep.
and you may end up moving or dancing or um, singing along. So that's going to exponentially add to the benefits as well. And this is just, one little nugget of something, I hope whoever is listening may try. It's something you can definitely try on your own.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. And all that's like super, super important. I think we're historically, in psychological science, we've come a long ways from it just the concept of something just being like in your mind, so to speak.
Mm,
And we've learned so much about the nervous system and all of the things you mentioned, like with cortisol, those, neurotransmitters and hormones in the body, how it's all works together. It's all one package, and
yes, everything's
thing,
connected.
right, things you can do to help one area will help other areas.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's important. Awesome. So how would someone know if music therapy is right for them or something that they might need to learn more about or check into?
You don't have to have experience as a musician to benefit from music therapy. So I
Mhm.
want to first say that, because that can be a common misconception. If you find joy in music, if you connect deeply with music, I think that is the one of my primary things that I would recommend, is something that might make someone an ideal candidate for music therapy.
Mhm.
But then also on the other end of things, people who are minimally responsive, or people who um, might communicate more deeply through through engaging with music. So
Mhm.
that could be, playing a drum. It could be playing piano. It could be singing, vocalizing. Um, as I mentioned, working with people with dementia, there's a completely different level of engagement and connection that happens if you're talking with someone with dementia versus singing and making music with them.
Yeah.
So, um, different issues, different types of brains can respond better with creative arts therapy. So not just music
Hmm.
therapy, but there's also art therapy and dance therapy.
Hmm.
So often as well with trauma survivors, words can be hard. Words
Yeah.
are hard for many of us, just
Yeah.
throughout life, but especially you throw trauma in there, or,
Uh-huh.
we know that depression changes and alters the brain,
Yep.
PTSD, CPTSD. So music can help us to have other pathways of communication and other pathways of, rebuilding our sense of self and life story.
Yeah. I like that you said that's another pathway of communication because, as you mentioned, if someone's non-responsive in a traditional sense, so to speak,
Mhm.
that's a good way to reach the subconscious, to
Mhm.
reach the feelings and emotions inside. Because as you've mentioned many times, we connect to music. We all connect to it at some time and somehow.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a powerful tool. Okay. Awesome. Awesome. Good. Good. I learned a lot. I knew a
Thank
little bit
you.
about music therapy, but yeah, I've learned a lot more, and
Glad to share.
it definitely gives me some things to think about and talk to others about too. So I hope with our listeners, they've learned a lot too. So tell us how people can get in touch with you, access your services, products. I know that you have some cards available on your website.
Yeah.
Fill us in on that. How can we get there?
So if you go to carolinamusictherapy.com, you'll find more about music therapy, about the settings in which I provide services, not just clinical music therapy, but also um, interactive events, corporate wellness, retreats, that sort of thing. I have some in-person wellness groups in Spartanburg. And again, going back to the self-care concept, you'll see a pop-up on my website, or you can get a PDF of something I made called a calm catcher. So, did you ever use these when you were a kid,
Yeah.
Jamie?
Yeah. I'm trying to
Nice.
remember that now. I'm like, wait a
Yeah.
minute. I recognize that.
So the official origami name is a salt safe. I think it is some kind of salt container.
Uh-huh.
But I grew up calling them cootie catchers when I was a kid,
Uh-huh.
or fortune tellers. And so you pick a color, and then you spell out the color, and then you pick a number, and then
Uh-huh.
you do that number, and then you finally do another number,
Uh-huh.
and lift the flap and reveal your future when you're a kid.
Right,
But
right.
I decided with this, I made for the Lake Eden Arts Festival that I present at, to make and give away to people that came to my workshops, to have some symbols on the front. I made
Uh-huh.
some fun music symbols, and then on the inside
Uh-huh.
I have 8 different small ways you can engage with
Okay,
music for
yeah.
mental health. So one of
Nice.
them is try box breathing along with the song that you love.
Uh-huh.
Sing along with the song you love. Give yourself a butterfly hug with the song you love. So just something that is actionable and tangible and only takes a few minutes.
Right, right.
So after that, I decided to apply for a grant and work on creating a card deck. So similar kind of principle, like similar bite-sized kind of doable, tangible, but helpful things that you can incorporate in your self-care. And decided to collaborate with a few other people on it. So it's
Uh-huh.
the creative and curious cards for mental wellness. And Bailey, who is a local artist in Spartanburg, South Carolina, is a tremendous mental health advocate, did the artwork for these.
Okay, cool, cool.
And I wrote the prompts that are music based. My art therapist friend, Courtney Chandler, wrote the art prompts. Louise Fagan, who is a local producer and writing workshop facilitator, wrote the writing prompts. And then Susan Woodham, who is a dance specialist and was actually a dance teacher that I had in elementary school, wrote the movement prompts. So it was awesome to reconnect with her. I was so excited to have this creative wonder team for the prompts.
Wow.
So there's the 4 different categories.
Okay.
There's
Yeah.
music and writing and visual art and movement. And so none of these require a bunch of extra supplies or artistic experience or a lot of time. They're all meant to be, take less than 5 minutes, really. So this one is one that popped out as an art card. Gratitude garden. Draw a flower. Write something you're grateful for on each of the flower petals. Add as many flowers as you'd like to create a blossoming garden of gratitude.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
So
I like that. That's very poetic and definitely gives you that visual sense.
Yeah.
While you're also practicing gratitude. Awesome. That sounds that the card deck sounds extremely versatile. Like for individuals to use themselves, parents, groups, art workshops, dance workshops, therapy, groups. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, people should definitely check that out on your website.
Thank you.
That sounds awesome.
And I have a Monday night free Zoom group that I'm doing this year. There's 52 cards in the deck. And when I did a reprint end of last year, my husband reminded me like, oh, there's 52 cards. You should do one for each week. That's a great idea. And so it's helping me be consistent on taking my own advice and taking time for myself to be creative for creativity's sake, and connect with other people and encourage and assist people in doing this practice regularly. So no purchase required, but if you sign up for my email list, I'll send you the information that way.
And that's on Monday nights?
Monday nights, 6 to 6:30 p.m. EST.
Okay, awesome. So people can join in for free and just using Zoom, which is, it's free on your laptop, your phone, whatever. And you'll every week, walk through a different prompt. So yeah, that's a great opportunity.
Thank you, Jamie.
All right. All right. So all of Allison's links will be in the description, her website, where you can also find the cards, and also the link to the Zoom. And you can sign up for that and attend for free on Monday nights. So yeah, a lot of great resources, and you can also learn more about her services in terms of music therapy. So man, this has been great. It's been some really good information. I love psychology anyways. Obviously I wouldn't be here, but I love the educational and practical combined. That's what I think is what is most beneficial for people to get a hold of. And this is very
sprinkled
much
in with some fun and joy too, and community.
Sure.
Yeah.
So thank you everybody for listening in. Please like, subscribe, definitely ask questions in the comments. If it's for me, if it's for one of our guests like Allison, I'll forward that over and we'll try to get you a response. Please share with someone who can benefit from the episode. You might hear it and think, yeah, this is cool, but maybe not for me, but I know someone else that, et cetera, et cetera. So definitely do that and hit the notification bell to stay tuned and stay connected to this community of mental well-being as we all learn and grow together. Thank you very much for attending. Allison, thank you very much. Had a great time.
Thanks, Jamie.